Germany, 1994, Christmas. Families are gathered together, eating homemade cookies, enjoying their festive meal, and perhaps already thinking about the presents. For children, Christmas is certainly one of the most exciting days of the whole year. The festive atmosphere, the whole family together, and of course, the presents. But hundreds of miles away sits a boy for whom, after these days, nothing will ever be the same again. On this day, too, the boy will probably miss his mom. She isn't there. She flew to Germany a few days earlier. For a long time, the boy will think that his mom simply left him alone because she wanted to start a new life. But that's not the case. The boy's mother is in a different place, lying dead in a small village in the middle of nowhere. It's December 26th. In Germany, it's still a day off from work. Those who are religious have already attended the Christmas service. The presents have been unwrapped, and a few Christmas trees are already losing their needles. In any case, the day is perfect for a long walk. In Eichhorst, Lower Saxony, too, a few people are out and about to stretch their legs. The village has about 480 residents, and perhaps this North German backwater is just the right place to unwind a bit after the Christmas hustle and bustle. For one walker, however, the harmless holiday outing ends in a huge shock. For in an inconspicuous waterhole by the side of the path, he sees the body of a young woman lying there. She is face down in the partially frozen water. The passerby does exactly the right thing in this situation. He immediately contacts the police. When the arriving investigators assess the situation and turn the body over, the blood in some of their veins must have run cold. The young woman's face is disfigured, quite obviously due to severe violence. Such a brutal murder naturally shocks the sleepy village. The police must now secure the initial evidence. Who is the deceased? Who killed her? And how did she even end up here? On the scene, the police can at least make out a vehicle track on the grassy strip. However, the track is only on one side, as if a vehicle had driven half on the road and half on the grassy strip. On the other side of the street lies a brown coat and, even more horrifying, teeth amidst bloodstains. They belong to the unidentified victim. Whoever did this to her clearly acted with the utmost brutality. Based on the evidence at the scene, the police are able to reconstruct the sequence of events fairly quickly. The dead woman from the Waterhole was likely a passenger in a car. Based on the tire tracks, it appears to have been a BMW 5 Series, 7 Series, or a similar model. There was apparently an argument in the car with the person behind the wheel, for whatever reason. The young woman tried to flee the car. The driver veered the car slightly off the road and then chased her to the opposite side of the street. He grabbed the woman by her brown coat and ripped it off her body. In doing so, he ended up on the grassy strip. Then the perpetrator knocked her down, injuring her so severely that she lost some of her teeth. Once the woman was already on the ground, the perpetrator must have continued to injure her in the head area with a weapon. It is likely that a sharp-edged object was used, possibly a hatchet or a folding spade. This conclusion can be drawn because the murder weapon was sharp-edged, but must also have had some kind of handle. There is a fracture of the skull cap and a fracture of the skull base. There are also fractures in the face and jaw area, as well as a crushed larynx. By this point, the woman would have already been unconscious. The perpetrator then dragged the victim 25 meters down the road to the waterhole and threw her in, face down. As the subsequent autopsy will show, the woman was still alive when she was pushed into the water. The perpetrator must have even pressed the woman's face into the water afterward to ensure she would not survive his attack. However, she would have died anyway from the severe injuries caused by the blows. Incidentally, there are no signs of a sexual assault. The police now face a major challenge. Not only is a murderer on the loose, but investigators initially have no idea who the victim might be. She has no papers or identification documents on her, nor a bag, personal belongings, or even jewelry. Nothing that would allow for a quick identification in the mid-90s. So the police have to take a more detailed approach. In a complex process, the young woman's severely injured face is reconstructed. This allows them to roughly determine, based on specially created images, what the deceased might have looked like. Looking back, it must be said that this was the 90s. The technical capabilities were not yet as advanced as they are today, and the victim's face was injured beyond recognition. But it's the best chance the investigators have. So the police go public with these images. They also hope to find the killer quickly once it's clear who the victim is. In theory, that sounds great. In practice, it's difficult, because it will take a very, very long time before the woman found in the Waterhole is identified. More than 25 years. Anthropological analyses in the years that followed revealed only the following. The deceased was approximately 25 to 30 years old. She may have been from North Africa or the Middle East. It seems likely that the deceased was not particularly well off. The clothing in which she was found was not of high quality. Completely ordinary, mass-produced goods, the kind you could already buy in the 90s at dozens of typical stores in city centers. The woman's brown coat had even been altered and hastily sewn a bit shorter. The woman was small and petite. However, the coat is a size 46. The buckle at the back likely hung down to her thighs. Even though the clothing may not have been of the finest quality, the woman was dressed smartly in the heavy wool coat, a black velvet dress, and winter boots. The shoes are a model from the 1994 winter collection of an affordable fashion brand. So, at least shortly before her death, the woman had treated herself to new winter shoes. When a man sees the missing persons alert and the reconstructed photos of the deceased, he gets an uneasy feeling. Because that face, the style of clothing, the details about age, height, and shoe size, it all sounds like his acquaintance, Ganya, whom he hasn't been able to reach since Christmas 1994. The man immediately contacts the police and tells the investigators about his acquaintance, Ganya Tilki. The Thai woman spent Christmas 1994 with the witness. The two were together from December 23rd to 25th. After that, the man took her to Hanover. Since then, there has been no trace of Ganya. The 33-year-old lived with her husband and worked in the red light district under the name Gio. And now the man feared that she might have fallen victim to a crime after they parted ways. The police were able to locate Ganya's relatives and arranged for a saliva sample so that the DNA could be compared with that of the deceased. But there was no match. The woman found in the Waterhole was not Ganya Tilki. The 33-year-old thus remains missing, and the young woman from the Waterhole is still unidentified. But this also means the police now have a missing persons case from the same region and the same time period on their hands. Ganya may not be the woman found in the Waterhole, but it is not unlikely that her disappearance is connected to the murder of the unidentified woman. Perhaps the search for Ganya can somehow lead the police to the identity of the unidentified woman after all. So the police begin investigating the 33-year-old Thai woman's social circle. And soon, there is an interesting witness statement. A witness reports having seen Ganya as recently as December, specifically at the Chinatown restaurant in Wolfsburg. Ganya was reportedly accompanied by another woman, and this woman was wearing a brown coat, exactly the same kind of coat as the one worn by the unidentified victim. So did the missing Ganya and the murdered woman know each other? And is the murder of one directly linked to the disappearance of the other? These are questions investigators are still asking themselves today. We live in an age where technological progress is virtually unstoppable, and for forensic science, that is a blessing. Never before have the chances of solving crimes from long ago been as high as they are today. And the case of the woman found in the Waterhole demonstrates this as well. For even though her killer may have gotten away with it to this day, her name is finally known. It is 2019. A married father files a missing person report. The strange thing is, the person he reports missing hasn't just been gone for a few hours, nor since yesterday. No, the person he misses more than anything else has been missing for 25 years. That's how long it's been since his mom, he believes, abandoned him. In December 1994, she traveled from her home country of Tunisia to Germany. She sent a letter asking the family to take good care of her young son, and that was the last sign of life from her. All these years, her son thought his mother had left him behind to start a new life in Germany without him. He is now an adult and lives in Austria, and in 2019, he decides to investigate the question that has tormented him for a quarter of a century. What happened to his mother? He wants to finally have certainty and be sure of what became of her. So he files a missing persons report for his mother, Zakia Mansour. Only now does he learn that she never knowingly left him behind, but also that she was never able to start a new life. Instead, she was brutally murdered. For Zakia Mansour is the mysterious woman found dead in the Waterhole. It is believed that she was killed on the night of December 24th to 25th, 1994. With the help of relatives, it is now possible to reconstruct at least a little of how and where Zakia was traveling in Germany in December before her murder. Zakia arrives at Hanover Airport on December 13, 1994, at 11:23 a.m. to be exact. She had taken a direct flight from Tunisia. She did not bring her 6-year-old son with her. The young mother had a failed marriage behind her and wanted to start something new in Germany. Zakia wanted to assess the situation on her own first and take care of some bureaucratic matters. There were quite a few of those in Germany. She planned to bring her son over as soon as possible. At least, that was the plan. But less than 2 weeks after her arrival in Germany, Zakia is dead. After landing at the airport in Hanover, Zakia calls home from a payphone. She speaks with her son and tells him that she landed safely. She also mentions that she met a new friend on the plane whom she hopes to see again soon. During a phone call with her sister later, Zakia adds that this new friend is from Wolfsburg. Her relatives don't know whether the two women actually met, nor has it been conclusively determined to this day who the woman was. But perhaps you have a hunch. By the way, Zakia had already brought her brown coat, which would later be found with her body, from Tunisia to Germany to be prepared for the December cold. At some point during her stay, Zakia must have also met a relative who was in Germany at the same time. This relative brought a package back to their home country for the family before Christmas, which Zakia had given him for them. It contained toys and clothes for her son, as well as a letter to her sister. In the letter, Zakia mentions, among other things, the name of a man she wanted to meet up with. The man can also be located and questioned. He states that Zakia stayed overnight at his place once, presumably from December 13th to 14th. Then Zakia asked him to drive her to Wolfsburg for a meeting. She mentioned an acquaintance from Germany who wanted to meet her there, so the date was likely not the woman she met on the plane. The police were indeed able to track down this acquaintance in Wolfsburg. However, Zakia is said to have spent only one night with him as well, specifically the night of December 14th to 15th. But that's where things get complicated. It's completely unclear where Zakia was from Friday, December 16th until the time of her death, or what she might have been doing with whom. But she must have been staying somewhere during that week. According to several media reports, a new witness has come forward to the police. He believes he saw Zakia at a nightclub in Salzgitter in December. However, that club no longer exists, and it's not easy to find any information about it. It's not entirely far-fetched that Zakia was there. Unfortunately, the witness is no longer sure which weekend he saw Zakia, either on December 16th, 17th, or even as late as December 23rd. Even after all these years, the witness can still remember Zakia because he thought she was quite pretty and she was strikingly petite. She probably looked a bit lost in that huge disco. Unfortunately, it's unclear whether she was alone or with someone. It would be very helpful for the police to know if more people saw Zakia. She certainly has connections to Hanover, Wolfsburg, and now possibly also to Salzgitter. Perhaps Zakia was out and about in one of these cities in the days before her murder, at other discos, or even at one of the Christmas markets. If anyone else has photos from that time, it could be very helpful to look at them again and see if Zakia can be spotted somewhere in the background. This could help narrow down her movements, and perhaps even help find the person who did this to her. A connection between the Zakia Mansour case and the missing person case of Ganya Tilka has not yet been ruled out. There are still witnesses who may have seen the two of them together at the restaurant in Wolfsburg. It is also interesting to note that the police now believe Zakia may have eaten Asian food the evening before her murder. Due to the possible connection with Ganya's disappearance, a link to the red light district is being considered. Even though there is no evidence whatsoever that Zakia worked in that area during those 2 weeks. But if the witness from Wolfsburg really did see Ganya and Zakia together at the Chinese restaurant, then Ganya must have introduced Zakia to that milieu, possibly even without Zakia being fully aware of it. Perhaps on the day of her murder, someone tried to force her into something she wasn't prepared for and didn't want. Perhaps that is how the argument that led to her murder broke out. And perhaps, according to one of the investigators' theories, Ganya was even present. And because she saw too much and could have become a threat to the main perpetrator, she too has since disappeared. Before Zakia's identity was confirmed, there was also the theory that Ganya might have wanted to go into hiding because of gambling debts and could now be living undisturbed under the murdered woman's identity. This theory was plausible because the victim's face had been smashed beyond recognition. However, no other Zakia Mansour has ever turned up anywhere. Thanks to new technologies, DNA traces were recovered from Zakia's shoes. These most likely belong to the perpetrator. So if the police have a suspect in their sights, the DNA from the shoes could be matched with that of the suspect, thereby convicting the young mother's killer. However, the police do not necessarily assume the perpetrator is male. A woman is also a possibility. That's possible even in such brutal crimes, but it's quite unusual. Perhaps the investigators are still considering a possible connection to Ganya, or maybe they have an entirely different theory. One thing is certain. Even today, people still remember Zakia Mansour, and they won't give up until they've found the person who so cruelly took her life. What do you think? Do you believe there's a connection between the two cases, or do you see it as nothing more than a coincidence? Or do you have a completely different theory about what happened to Zakia Mansour in 1994? I'm looking forward to your comments and hope you'll be sure to share your thoughts. As you know, that fuels the algorithm, just like likes or a subscription. And especially with such a sad, unsolved case, I'd be happy if the video reached a lot of people. Above all, I'd like to express my sympathy to Zakia's family at this time. I really hope the case gets solved someday. Until then, we'll keep hoping. Other than that, there isn't much more to say. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever time you're watching this, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao everyone.